Doing back there to technology. Okay, got it. Okay. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the March School Board meeting. We will begin this evening at 6:33 with a roll call by our clerk. Member Banks.
Here.
Chair Duraketer. Here. Member Loeffler-Kemp. Here. Vice Chair Lofold. Here. I'm Clerk Mixell. I am here. Treasurer Sadowski. Here. Member Williams. Here. Superintendent Megas.
Here.
Assistant Superintendent Bonds. Present. Deputy Clerk Zinich. Here. Board Secretary Paquette. Here. Our ALC student representative is excused. Tamia Bowles. Here. Student Rep Kalina Madala. Here. Got it right. Roll call is complete.
March 5th through the 7th, Thursday at the deck for Lake Superior Regional. And then, sorry. And then I wanted to also talk about Denfeld is hosting the third of our 4-month Desire Daily Experience for Denfeld students to help plan for next year. We've been doing that this is our third one. If you can, I would recommend it. It is really good. You talk about a lot of hard conversations and stuff and what needs to be worked on. And we're hoping to get gain a lot of insight on how families feel about the Denfeld experience. And then another thing, Opportunity Day isn't really working for most Denfeld students. We don't have enough time. Well, some students say that we might not have enough time for clubs and activities because it's kind of like trying to choose between going and getting missing work done or getting your grade up higher or going to do your club, especially if it's at the same time. It just might not be the right thing. I can't speak for all the rest of the schools. I know East has a different type of scheduling that they do, but just we're trying to figure out maybe if there's something that we can do like instead of that, or maybe if we can find a different type of scheduling for those types of days. And yeah, that's really it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an excellent report. And let's hear from East now.
Hi, good evening, everyone, once again. I know many of us, including myself, are very excited for spring break. It has been a very stressful past month for many students, so I know it'll be very great. I would love to start off my report by talking about activities at East. Just 2 weeks ago, we had our Red and Gray Spirit Week, which was Stranger Things themed, and students seemed to enjoy it. We were very excited to see the best turnout student government has had in a very long time at our decorating party. Students came together to make posters and eat pizza. Stugo has also held various activities throughout that week, such as ice cream, a cakewalk for cookies, March Madness basketball tournament, and 2 assemblies. The e-learning day unfortunately caused us to reschedule our Friday assembly to Monday. Thankfully, we were still able to have a successful and engaging assembly where we played musical chairs, watched our cheer team, also congratulated our boys swim team for winning state. Shout out to Joey Zellen, Will Zellen, and Lucas Warren. And most importantly, we were able to see the crowning of our 3 top dogs. As I previously said at our last meeting, 10 students were nominated by the senior class for demonstrating positive qualities and school spirit, also known as top dogs. I highly recommend checking out the Duluth East Facebook page to see some pictures from the assemblies. We also had an amazing turnout at our Re-East Cycled event. Last year, student government started this, and I was thrilled to hear that we were doing it once again this year. Students were encouraged to bring in their old East clothing, formal wear, and other gently used clothing items. Then students could come on Pause Day or Opportunity Days like Denfeld has to grab any clothes that they wanted as they were all free. Then on our last pause day, we held it during both the pause blocks, lunches, and third hour. We handed out cookies and lemonade for people who came. Because of how successful it was, I'm very excited to share that we were going to do this again in April. Lacrosse, golf, softball, baseball, and boys tennis have recently started their season with captains practices. Track had their first meet this past Saturday, and I heard very good reports from it, and that is amazing since it is still one of our biggest teams at East. Members of Key Club are trying to get their 50 volunteer hours before the year is over so they can get their activity letter. I'm also excited to announce that the spring play, The Little Prince, will be held on May 8th, 9th, and 10th. I will have more information at the next meeting about that for times. We've been trying to relax a bit after the hectic red and gray week in student government, but we will be working very hard soon to plan our spring events, such as yearbook signings, Kiss a Senior Goodbye, sports assembly, senior sunset, senior shirts, tailgate, and our annual Powder Puff tournament. I know I've said I'm excited a lot, but I'm also very excited to announce that our community service event, Swing into Spring Festival, will be held on April 19th from 11:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Peace Church. This community-centered event will offer family-friendly activities such as live music, swing dancing, face painting, bracelet making, yard games, and free lemonade and cookies. Attendees will have the opportunity to bid on baskets donated by local businesses. All proceeds will go directly to nonprofits present at this event, such as the Depot Foundation, the League of Women Voters Duluth, and more. We will also be collecting canned food items and gently used clothing items to be distributed in our community. All are welcome, and I highly recommend looking at the Student Government Instagram page to hear more updates when we get closer to the time. And tell your family and friends to come because it will be a very big event. Unfortunately, we were unable to have Denfeld's Golds Group at our last POV meeting that I talked about at our last school board report, but we do plan on going there for our next pause day. On a different note, I was able to have a larger turnout for Student Forum. I did have to incentivize people to come by bringing cookies, but it did help. Not many students actually stayed longer than 10 minutes. However, they still shared a couple pieces of feedback. The majority of the feedback, again, was about pause days. Many students and some faculty are still struggling with this implementation. It is very difficult to make up for missed tests, and many clubs have died out since. I reached out to a couple teachers to hear their feedback on pause days. They all agreed that having dedicated time during the school day for students to attend clubs and get homework done is important. They also agreed that it is nice for flexibility. Some negative feedback I heard, however, was that it is very hard for students to narrow down 2 options for clubs. They have also shared that this time is not enough. I understand the reasons as to why we don't have WIN anymore, but we have lost so much catch-up time. From my understanding, both WIN and pause days are solely for catch-up times. During these catch-up times, we can either attend clubs, work on homework, or just hang out with others. One of my classmates calculated how much of that catch-up time we have lost. Essentially, with WIN, we were given 30 to 45 minutes every day for about 28 days. With the new pause schedule, we get 7 to 8 hours every 28 days. If you calculate that further, it is only about 17 minutes every day. We have lost so much time now that WIN is gone. Students have lost club opportunities, and this is an issue that will keep being brought up until it is changed. In the 2025-2026 Student Handbook, one of the core values is belonging. I believe that one huge part about belonging has to do with clubs and opportunities for students. At the moment, there are only 2 in-school opportunities a month for students to be a part of clubs. I know that not all students are involved in more than 2 clubs, but there's still a large group of students that are missing out on club opportunities because of this pause implementation. I know there are reasons as to why we changed pause and how it looks this year, but we are losing involvement from students. We used to have 7 opportunities, and now there are only 2. Furthermore, students are noticing that there are still teachers teaching on those pause days, and that makes them struggle even more. There was also the Construct Tomorrow required field trip for sophomores on our latest pause day. Many students were confused as to why we were doing this on what was supposed to be our catch-up day. It has also come to my attention that teachers were very vague about this, and sophomores did not understand when they were supposed to leave. I'm hoping that next year we schedule this not on a pause day or opportunity day so that students don't miss this catch-up time. Next, I would like to bring up the library. With budget cuts, I understand we are struggling with having a librarian. Unfortunately, this cut has brought many challenges in various ways. Students this year have lost a study space, lost a resource, and have lost opportunities to check out books. The library is not open throughout the whole school day, and that includes mornings. I know this space has been very helpful for students in high school and in middle school so that they have a quiet space to meet with clubs, study groups, or just hang out by themselves. We have the cafeteria and mezzanine, I know, but these spaces are very loud throughout the day. I want to try to work on ways we can keep the library open for the whole day, and including mornings. Those were the two issues that were brought up during student forum that I want to bring up again to you guys. I understand that these are reoccurring issues that continuously are being brought up, but it is very difficult for students to stay involved, get homework done, study, and more because of our limited catch-up times and our limited library access, and it continues to be the students' #1 concern collectively. To wrap up my report, I would love to share a bit about what I have been doing in this role. Like said before, I had the opportunity to speak to more teachers and faculty, which has been helpful to understand both the positives and negatives of the pause implementation. I have also reached out to the Real Talk advisor at Odine to see ways I can connect with them and share feedback from them. I have been encouraging others to share their feedback on issues they believe should be discussed more. I've been doing that by talking to them face-to-face, putting up QR codes around the school for how they can reach me, and stopping others in the hallway to have them join in on student forum conversations. I believe student voices are important, like said before, and I will keep trying to gain as much input as I can from my peers. Lastly, to quote my last report, many students have unique insights and perspectives that can significantly enhance the effectiveness of our school. When students feel heard and valued, it creates a more engaging and positive learning environment. I urge you all to continue to actively seek out, listen to, and thoughtfully consider student feedback. It is important to not only hear it, but to embrace it. Thank you all once again for this opportunity and your time.
Thank you for the excellent report. Very, very well shared. And Mr. Bonds and Director Larva, I know you've been working for quite a while on some updates related to the Intra-City Student Council, and I was hoping that we could have an update at our maybe our April Committee of the Whole meeting, because I think I agree with you. We need to make sure that we have a forum for voice, and we've been waiting a while for that, so I think it'd be really excellent if we had that moving forward. So we'll look forward to that, because really, we are here to serve you, and we're thinking about the high school schedule, and these are valuable and valid questions and concerns, and we've committed to doing that, and I want to make sure that we honor that commitment that we've made. The next items that we have are the budget reductions and reallocations.
Can I jump in with a question for the students, though?
Pardon? Sure.
I just had a question for a student
Yeah,
rep.
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Rep Bowles, can you repeat the time of tomorrow's conversation?
It's at 5 to 7.
5 to 7 at Dunfeld?
Yeah.
Thank
That'll
you.
be great. Thank you so much. So we'll be talking about our budget reduction and reallocation, a little bit of legislative update, and then a little bit on just the litigation that we're part of. Our budget update is pretty detailed, though, and I know that there are a lot of people waiting on that, so I want to make sure that we're clear and we have time for questions. Again, when we think about why do we have a $4 million gap, most places in the state have a very similar reduction, and we need to make sure that we have our financial house in order, so to speak. When we think about the 50 AMSD districts, all 50 have an average of about $4.5 million. Some more, like Minneapolis with $50 million, some less, with even some that don't have any budget deficit, but the average is about what we're seeking. So this is an issue of numbers, and the biggest number that is impacted is the special education number. When we think about our funding for special education, the state only funds 60 cents on the dollar, and so that's one of our biggest costs. That's costing us about $2 million as a school district. We also have rising health insurance, and I want to commend Executive Director Zunich when she forecasted that it would be a 15% increase in our health insurance premiums. Not good news, but it was accurate news. That's actually exactly what it came in at. So the estimate of 15% was there, right, and that's about $2 million. And then we also have some increased costs for transportation that I've addressed previously. as well as some of the costs of some of the unfunded mandates. When we think about unemployment insurance, when we think about some of the other things that are not fully funded by the state, those are things that we need to focus on. So really our bottom line is that for our fiscal health, we have to make sure that we optimize resource allocation and that we reduce spending for the upcoming school year by approximately $4 million. How did we make our decisions? I think we've shared a lot with our guiding change document. We talked about how we want to make sure that we have a very transparent and inclusive conversation in the areas that we've looked at. We wanted to make sure that we had a wide range of data and feedback channels, and some of those included Thought Exchange. We worked in a very, very extensive piece with Thought Exchange and had nearly 2,000 respondents, which is far more than we normally get in a survey. And of those 2,000 respondents, about 45,000 people, or 45,000 interactions with various people's ideas. We also met many times with our principals, and we're meeting again tomorrow for our Principal Plus meeting. And we've also had labor management feedback from our various unions. We also look at our registration and enrollment data. Those are very impactful. And I actually would say some of the good news about our district, a lot of districts are also facing declining enrollment, which means every student that comes in, they don't get the ADM or the funding for those students. We actually have the opposite. It's a challenge, but it's a good challenge. We have more students coming to us than ever in our recent history. We had over 200 new students enroll this year. And then also, we took a lot of feedback from board members just on where we are with things and what the information was. And actually, the board helped guide us in putting together that guiding change document. And that guiding change document was really our rudder, so to speak, in our decision-making as we move forward. And then also another commendation for Executive Director Zunich, that we've been using for the past few years frontline budget forecasting tools. So it's not just guessing what our budgets are going to be from year to year or taking an educated guess. It's using sophisticated software to really look at those budgets. So as you know, I mentioned the Thought Exchange that we did, and some of the key priorities that were identified were really around class size and teacher support. That was the top thing. People noted that there was a need for us to emphasize maintaining small class sizes, or at least reasonable class sizes where we could, and that we were supporting our teachers. And also thinking about special education and mental health. Those are drastic needs for our district, and we want to make sure that we're prioritizing that, as well as our core academic programs. There was also support, and I think this was based partly on some of the recent reductions we've had in previous years, to make sure that we're supporting the arts in our music programs, because we reduced quite a bit in our music programs, and they said, please, no more in those areas. And then thinking about people who are directly supporting our students, not just our teachers, but also thinking about staff, our paraprofessionals, our interventionists, and others. So those were some of the key priorities that came through the Thought Exchange. And then thinking about where were some of the potential areas for reduction. One of the top areas that they talked about was administrative costs. Thinking about where can we reduce with district office expenditures, and thinking about the administrative costs. Thinking about salaries and non-student facing roles, and I'll address that in just a minute. There's also conversations about being more thoughtful with our use of technology funding. Thinking about one-to-one devices. We've had one-to-one devices, but maybe limiting that to the higher grades. Those were some of the feedback pieces we heard. And also thinking about different ways that we could fund extracurricular activities. They talked about even sports and things like that, those were areas that maybe we need to find other ways of seeking funding for those areas. A number of people felt that they didn't really like our professional development days and thought maybe that would save money by getting rid of those. But we also know that we're asking for a lot of change in the way that people teach and the way that people are functioning in a system. So I think it's important for us to, we actually just had our graduation for our letters training upstairs for a group of people. They were not just eating cake, but they were talking about how much that they have changed the way that they teach. I was speaking to a teacher just this evening who was saying that this has been transformative. And I've heard that expression, transformative. It's transformed my teaching many times from many teachers, and also they're starting to see the results. So those professional learning opportunities, even though sometimes they're not always highly loved, are necessary for us. Another thing that came up again and again was thinking about a 4-day school week. And this is something that we've looked at. We look at under every rock, and we consider every possible change. The thing about a 4-day school week that I've mentioned before is that that really only saves a district money if you can pretty much shut down the school on that 5th day. So in districts where you can just turn off the lights and close things down and cool down the building and not have anybody there, then it works for saving money. But the challenge is that we have a lot of students in our district that don't just need us 4 days a week. We have a lot of families and students that need us 5 days a week. And so we remain committed, even though some of our neighbors are making other choices and those might work for those communities. We know that our community needs us 5 days a week, and that we would need to still do things like key zone and feed meals and make sure that we had safe places and supportive places for our students. So we're not pursuing a 4-day school week at this point. And I also think sometimes that could make us an attractor. We think about how are we going to be different than other people around us, and what can we offer that's different. And I think if other districts are going to 4-day week, I think offering a 5-day week can be something that appeals to families and students alike. So those were some of the thought exchange ideas that we had. And some people were saying, like, are you just going to use thought exchange to vote on like what you do or where you reduce? No, not at all. This was meant to sort of measuring and taking stock of the currents that were in the water. So if the guiding change was the rudder, knowing where the community felt, those were kind of like the currents in the water that we dealt with. And this gave us a much better read on not just gut feel for how people are feeling, but what did people actually think, and how could we quantify it. One of the cool things about Thought Exchange too is that you can use it for pretty deep analysis. So you can go in and just ask for like different, these were the highlights, but you can also ask it to tell me more about what high school parents think about our sporting events, or you can ask very detailed questions, and it gives you really significant analysis. But some of those things that came up really affirmed what we already had in the guiding change. And those were things that we wanted to focus on transparency and have open, honest communication with everybody present. And so one thing that was focused on was prioritizing students first. As much as possible, we were trying to reduce the impact on classrooms and also focus on mental health needs. We also, I would say, one of the things we changed significantly based on the Thought Exchange feedback and feedback from our groups and other folks was overhead reduction, making sure that we streamline our administrative costs. And so when we look at our budget reductions overall, we had approximately 16% of our district office general fund expenditures. We had a 16% reduction in district office expenses, whereas for the sites it was between 4 and 6%. So nearly triple, and in many cases triple, the reduction at district office in those areas. We also wanted to make sure that we were keeping our referendum promises. We know that we've talked to the community when we're going out for referendum, and we said that if you fund certain things, we will do certain things. So making sure we held true to those things was important for us, and making sure the process we've had has been really inclusive in the decision making. Those are all parts of the guiding change, but they were really affirmed through that feedback process that we had. So what does all of this mean? And really, this is the time that we give the higher level overview of where we're at. So if we think about the general fund recommended reductions, and it's important to say general fund recommended reductions because I think sometimes people think about budget overall, but there are some restricted funds. So the big difference, general funds are like, it's money that we can spend on whatever we need to, where restricted funds are restricted for certain needs, like food service. Nutritional services funds can only be spent on nutritional services. Special education funds can only be spent on special education. American Indian education funds should only be spent on American Indian funds. All of those areas, title, all of those areas are things that are specific and they're not part of the general fund. But when we look at the general fund reductions, we actually found reductions of $4,288,500. And that's more than we targeted. We targeted $4 million, but we also know that as we head into the year, there are going to be other things that are needed and other like if we reduce just at $4 million, we know that there's going to be a situation where maybe there's a classroom bubble where we have to give an extra classroom teacher to reduce. If class sizes are above 30, we might need to split a classroom. Or we know that sometimes when teachers are doing scheduling, if we have a very high point with our numbers in geometry classes, we might need to add another section. So we wanted to make sure that we went slightly above target so that we had just a little bit of flexibility as those needs came in. So based on the feedback that we had and prioritizing classroom stability as much as possible, we did have, as I said, a higher cut from district office. So from district office, we identified $4.249 million, which is 15.61%. From our secondary level, we are reducing by an estimated $1,781,500, which is 5.8%. From the elementary, we would be reducing by an estimated $1,258,000, which is about 4.1%. You might be saying, people might be asking, how come we're reducing a little more from the high school percentage-wise than the elementary? And I think what it comes down to is at the elementary level, there are fewer things that you can flexibly cut. You either have a first grade teacher or you don't have a first grade classroom teacher. Whereas at the secondary level, when people are taking a wide variety of classes and elective choice and they're doing things by registration process, there's more areas that you can identify for potential reduction. And sometimes in our elementary schools, quite often there's just a principal and just a clerical and just classroom teachers and hardly anything else. And so you can only reduce so far in those areas. And so we did take a little bit more out of secondary, but less than we were asking from the district level. And so you might be thinking, well, where are those areas? And I'm going to pull that up right now. Just give me a second. And that's linked in the presentation. So here we are. This is our budget reduction sheet, and it outlines where the reductions are and what types of positions. Now, I want to point out too that all of the positions, like when we think about district level positions, what we did, there were reductions of administrators, but there are also a lot of positions that are supporting administrators. So we might have teachers on special assignment and other clerical support and other positions that are supportive of those roles. And so we did cut administrators, but we also reduced a lot of other positions that had a supportive role there. So that means that there will be more on the plates of those administrators. So if there's a curriculum teacher on special assignment position that's reduced, for instance, those duties would fall upon the people that are left. And so even though the numbers aren't quite as reflective, I think it's important to note that there's a vast increase in workload that's going to be expected from those that are remaining. So our district office reductions, you can see here how those are laid out with the different staff that we have here. At the elementary school, there are teacher reductions and non-certified reductions. We also had contracted services of about nearly $300,000 reduced from district office. We had about $30,000 in contracted services reductions from elementary, and we'll be sharing more about that. At our high school, we had about 15 positions that were reduced, as well as 2.12 certified or non-certified positions. There were some things that were reduced beyond that, but there were also some things that were added. For instance, our Check and Connect mentors that we have, you just talked about mentoring and the importance of mentoring. We recognize how important mentoring is. And so at both East and Denfeld, they found other reductions because they knew that the grant that was funding all of those peer mentors, that was, or not peer mentors, but the Check and Connect mentors, that was going away. And so, for instance, at Denfeld, they actually looked and found more than what they would have had to reduce so that they could buy back and keep those mentors. And so this is the reductions that we had at secondary. So again, it's about $4.3 million in reductions, and that's where we're at this point with those reductions. Let me go back here just a second. And I know it's likely that we'll come back to questions on budget, so I could either stay on budget or continue and just finish. I just have a couple more slides on legislative update, but then we can come back to budget if people prefer. All right. So our legislative update, and they really do weave together, because if you think about why are we in this economic situation, it's partly because of the funding issues that we have. The funding isn't keeping up with the needs. And so we are working hard, and I want to say thank you to our board members. So many of you were there for the Minnesota MSBA and MASA Day at the Capitol, but then we also had nearly full board participation at the Duluth St. Louis County Days. And so the MSBA MASA Day was on March 9th, advocating for funding for our students. And then on the 18th and 19th, we had our Duluth St. Louis County Days asking for many of the same things. And really, I do have some very significant concerns because our governor's budget that was proposed, they were looking at reducing and finding efficiencies through the Blue Ribbon Committee for special education. They were looking for efficiencies of $240 million. The governor just proposed that they up that to $300 million. So as we're looking at tightening our belts already, there's even a request that we tighten even further to go to $300 million in reductions and efficiencies through the governor's budget. So we're hopeful that we can continue to advocate in that area. The session adjournment, the state legislature goes through May 18th, and that's part of the reason why we don't move forward with things like layoff if there was a need for layoff. And once again, I want to reiterate, we don't forecast that there's going to be a need for layoff. We think it's going to be displacement. The difference between displacement and layoff is that you are contractually separated from your position. So you still have a job in the district, but like if I'm a first grade teacher at Congdon, for instance, if I'm displaced, I still have a job someplace in the district, but it might not be that particular job that I had at that building. So right now, after break, we're going to wait. We worked with our teachers union, and we're going to announce those displacements after break once we have an opportunity to go through the seniority and those aspects. So we're not sharing any details about what positions tonight, because we want to make sure that we honor those processes of going through those areas. But this legislative session ends on May 18th, and after that, we'll have a better picture of where we are financially. And if there's a little tweak here or there that would impact how many positions we actually have to reduce, or if there's additional funding for things that's flexible. And we're promoting flexible funding and local decision-making. And so if we have that, that could mitigate some of these reductions. So here are some of the great pictures from our day at the Capitol. Some smiling faces of nearly everybody there. And we just had really good opportunity to talk about our students, talk about our school experiences, talk about what their needs were, and really express what were some of the things we could do to shift things and find support for our students. I also want to give a special shout out to Dell Wellens and Patty Paquette, who worked really hard to put together our booth for our Duluth St. Louis County Days. It was excellent. We had lots and lots of compliments, and I think representing ourselves in the community is really important and wouldn't have happened without the two of you, so thank you. And here's some more pictures. You see the different teams. We actually had 3 teams of people, and actually they're represented in these pictures. There was 2 school board teams with myself and Kelly Durek-Eater and Amber Sadowski, and then there was a team with Anthony Bonds and Rosie Loeffler-Kemp and Jill Lofald, and then we also had a Duluth Days team from the chamber that was Danette Sebo and Sarah Mikesell. So really focusing on our Duluth Promise work there too. So just want to say thanks, and everybody, and Henry Banks, you were part of the team with Anthony Bonds. Sorry, I was trying to look at all the pictures and get everybody in the same time. But really appreciate everybody coming forward. And I know if other members had commitments and weren't able to be there, but they were there in spirit and celebrated as well. Thank you. AKA Stephanie Williams. She would have been there, but she had to work, and we totally get that priority as well. Sorry. The litigation update, just a reminder that we are finishing, we're part of that lawsuit against the federal government. Our court date is April 9th, so that's the date that we have coming up right after break, the Wednesday after break, and Fridley and the Education Minnesota were also plaintiffs, which was filed, and it was not filed yesterday, that's a previous typo, but we are not spending any school district money on this. I want to make it clear, because some people were commenting in social media saying, if you weren't spending money on this, you'd have more money for kids. That's not the case. This is all pro bono work, and we're just trying to make sure that we stand up for our neighbors. Questions or comments? Member Lawler-Kemp.
Thank you for an excellent report, and really have appreciated the many meetings that you and Assistant Superintendent Bonds and Simone Zunich and staff have met with us to answer our questions on our budget questions. So just really appreciate all the time that you've given us over the last few weeks. One of my comments actually had more to do with thought exchange, and I was going to beep you when you were talking, more for the public to understand a little bit more on how that went out, how people were able to give feedback, who gave feedback, because those numbers are impressive, how much feedback we did get. And I just thought that would be kind of important for people to know a little bit more.
So thought exchange, I think sometimes we think about it as a survey tool, but it's far more than a survey tool. It's more of a dynamic engagement platform. So people can put, there's a central question that's put out. And Adele, if you have anything you'd like to add, feel free to jump in. But there's an essential question that's put out, and then people make a comment based on how they're feeling about that particular question that was asked, and then state their rationale. And that, after people start doing that, the comments are anonymous, they go up anonymously. So it's not based on who said what, it's based on what was said. And people rank those comments, they give it's a 5-star rating system. And then gradually, as different ideas are surfaced as being more popular than others, or more widely shared, those questions rise to the top, so to speak. But again, we had nearly 2,000 participants, and they ranked a total of there were a total of 45,000 rankings. So 45,000 times that people interacted with other people's thoughts. And you think about the power of that, it's really impressive. Also, as I mentioned, it has a couple of different tools as an advisor tool that allows you to ask it certain questions, and it will basically nearly instantaneously call through all that qualitative data and give you feedback on what you're asking. And then there's also another tool called Discover, where you can add additional documents, like you could add the guiding change document, you could add our strategic plan, you could add what our final budget reductions were, and then ask, how did we do in relationship to these, or how do these factor in? So it's a tool that we've invested in recently. We used it for our calendar, our feedback on our calendar, and there was a lot of great feedback there, as well as our school resource officer feedback. And so we're just starting to get to use it, but it's another way that we're trying to make sure that we are as transparent as possible, and that we also use that data. And again, like I said, we more than doubled what we reduced from our district expenses, because we were hearing from so many people that they wanted us to focus on administrative overhead. So we don't take the feedback lightly. We want to make sure we're inclusive. Anything else you'd like me to add?
No, I appreciate that, but also on the same vein of the decision-making process in the slide that you had, you did talk a lot about the principal collaboration, and I want to also thank our principal leadership across the district, because I know they put in much extra time in this. And I guess, is there anything else you'd want to share about,
Yes.
we all know that principals know their buildings the best, and and just how the decisions came about.
Sure. And I think so I look at, usually decisions are made, best decisions are made by the people who are closest to the work and the people who have most responsibility for what the outcome of the decision is. And so that's why when Director Larva and Director Sparts and Assistant Superintendent Bonds and myself and others, we were working closely with the principals, but I especially want to thank our two directors because they worked really closely in trying to get that principal feedback on where we would make our reductions. None of the reductions were reductions that people wanted to make, but it was more of a question of, if you have to make this reduction, you have to make this target, what would be the places that would have the least impact possible on the system? And so that's where we had a lot of back and forth conversation, where we would talk with the principals and get their feedback. We might give them a little bit of guidance on what would work or not work, for instance, but then we were able to really coalesce and move forward. And I would say that the reductions that were made were very largely based on the feedback of the principals of those various schools based on meeting their targets. So that back and forth opportunity there, and then also through our labor management process with the DFT and others, we took feedback there. And also what I would say is there was a part of the guiding change document that said that we need to examine all legacy practices with an eye of fiscal responsibility. And what we mean by that, and that those words stick in my mind because they're powerful, is we can't just do things the way we've always done them. We need to look at every single expenditure and think about, could we do this differently? And there were many, many, many things that were on our list for consideration that you don't see here because we considered them one way or the other, and we decided that we could move forward with it or we couldn't move forward with it. I would say, however, and this is a warning for the future, that we very well may have additional reductions in the future if we don't have changes in state funding or if we don't have a referendum that would better support our schools. We will have to continue to make reductions the same as all other districts or most other districts. And so some of the things that we were able to save this year might be things that are impacted next year if we have to make further reductions. So I'm very hopeful that we're going to have a change in state funding through our advocacy, or that we'll be able to consider an operational referendum or something like that as needed. Otherwise, we're going to have even more challenges in the years to come. Can't see all the lights, but any other questions? No? Chair Eater, Dirk Eater? Oh, I'm sorry. Member Mikesell?
Thank you for the report. I just want to highlight the seemingly collaborative work that went into bringing forward where the reductions will be held. It's just such an awkward time right now, recognizing that we're about to go into spring break, and there'll be news like when people get back. And so I just want to give a moment to honor like where everyone's sitting right now with that. I also just wanted to share that we took lots of nice pictures when we were down at the Capitol on our various days down there lobbying. But I know that in my groups at least, we had hard conversations with our lawmakers at the state level. We were sharing with them what the impacts are in our district, especially about proposed changes. So I just hope that our community knows that we are really going to bat when it comes to the funding that we receive from the state and federal level, doing as much as possible, trying to convince those who have the power and to work legislatively to make sure that our schools do not suffer. So I just wanted to make sure that that's also very clear. I also just want to thank our community because I recently was at the community information session about budget reductions that was held at East last week. And we had community members there saying, what can we do? How can we help? How can we get this message from our school district out to those who need to hear it? And so I just want to thank them for stepping up, and I hope that we are able to engage and help people organize and support our schools and support our community in that way. And this is obviously isn't a fun time. I've been on the board, this is my third year. This is the third year of cuts. So this is not exactly what I signed up for. But I do appreciate the the positive intent that everyone comes into these decisions that are very, very difficult, and know that the people at this table, I feel I can speak confidently, are really trying their hardest to have the least impact to kids and to make sure that our students and our staff are very successful.
Thank you, and I too, I've thanked many people in the process, but I also want to thank the board members because you've leaned in very deeply. You've spent countless hours in conversation with us and talking about the different reductions that we're going to be making, giving us guidance, giving us, you know, from a governance standpoint, you've done an excellent job in that regard. And then also when we think about it, that outward-facing work that we do, the advocacy that you speak about and the frank conversations with our lawmakers, I think were very, very important. And I think being forthright about what are the things we're having to reduce, because 3 years in a row, we've had to make really significant reductions. The first year, to some degree, we were able to look at lower hanging fruit and make reductions without significant impact to staff. You know, you tighten your belt. Second year, you're starting to have impact to staff, and we're cutting staff and reducing in areas that we don't want to. But this third year, it's even more painful because it's the third year in a row that we've gone again to people and say, you have to do more with less. And so I think it's important for us to recognize that, and it's important for us as not just as a community, but as a society, think about what are our priorities. And really, if you think about the priority of state government, one of its biggest priorities is to fund schooling. And so that's what we need right now. Chair Durkee.
I would reiterate many of the things that Member Mike Sell said. We went down and lobbied very vigorously and vociferously for our students and our staff. We are a large district with a fairly good-sized budget, and 85% of that budget goes to the people that we employ. So when it comes time to make significant cuts, like a $4 million cut, those cuts come from the people that serve our students. And so while, as Superintendent Magus talked about displacements this year, if we're and being able to do that piece, hopefully with most of those cuts, if we're back here in this position next year, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to talk about displacements. We're probably going to have to make cuts again in the people that serve our children. We are battling against rising costs in healthcare for our staff, and we're also battling against rising costs to deliver the services to our special education that are both federally mandated, state mandated, and it is the right thing to do that we believe here at the Duluth Public Schools. So we want to continue to serve our students where they're at, but we are also battling some significant inflationary costs around healthcare and then unfunded mandates by the state legislature. So we're going to continue to try to seek efficiencies within our budget, but we have to face the reality that at some point we're going to probably have to have conversations with our community around what do we want our schools to look like and how are we going to fund them. So that is something for all of us in this community to think about over the next coming year. And if you want to help us here at the Duluth Public Schools, ways that you can do that is to reach out to your legislators and have conversations and talk to them about the importance of what teachers and staff do for kids every day in the Duluth Public Schools. And so I just want to thank everybody who's been part of this communication, part of this community, doing this very difficult work. Because again, as I've talked about, 85% of our budget is people that serve kids, that have gone to school and dedicated their lives in service of other people's kids, in service of students, and in service of their community. So I would just ask that you go back and talk to your legislators and then think about how we can continue to do this work for kids that takes the pressure off of our teachers and our staff when it comes to what does their take-home paycheck look like and will they have a job next year. So I just want to leave that, and Duluth is an amazing community and I know they always show up for their kids, so we want to just again implore our community to reach out to your state legislators and have those conversations with them and tell them that it is important that they show up for the kids the same way that the teachers and the paraprofessionals and the counselors and the social workers and the lunch ladies and also the custodians and the bus drivers and the huge contingent of people that serve our kids every day, ask them to have the same commitment to those kids that our staff and our employees do. So thank you for this work, and I just really want to thank everybody who has engaged in this process, because there is not a good answer. It's just choosing from a bevy of very difficult, not great choices. So thank you. I also would like to lift up our superintendent and our assistant superintendent and all of our directors for leading this. So thank you.
Thank you. And another thing, and thank you, Assistant Superintendent Bonds, for giving me the nudge on this. We've done some really good work on our budget page when we were seeking transparency. There's a link on the main page, or you can search budget in general, but it talks about what are some of the budget impacts that we have, talks about what are we doing, how are we getting there, basically it lays everything out. It also talks about our year-to-date revenues and lays out all that information, but then it also talks about what our expenses are. And then you also can see that we have started a frequently asked questions area as well. So basically, it goes into greater detail there. So we're always working on expanding this page, but this is a place where you can seek additional information and get additional answers, and we update that periodically. So I think it's important for those engagement points. But thank you for tonight, and I'm sorry that we're having to focus on a necessary but negative reality of education in the United States at this point. It concludes my superintendent's report. Sorry.
Thank you very much, and we have no further questions, so we'll move on to our next agenda item. You can see attached to the board book, we have a schedule of meetings and events coming up. Next, we'll move on to reports of the standing committee. We'll talk about our committee of the whole meeting, and I will turn it over to Assistant Superintendent Bonds to talk to us about that meeting.
Thank you, and I'll be brief. The last COW meeting was held on Tuesday, March 3rd. We had 3 presentations. One presentation was provided by our coordinator who oversees our literacy programming, Gretchen Karg. She provided an update related to the READ Act professional development that we have been providing our staff to, again, ensure that they develop the knowledge and skills to provide high-quality literacy instruction to our students. So just want to say thank you to all of the teachers for all of their time and energy that they've put into building up their skills. As superintendent shared, there was a celebration even today related to some of that training. So I want to say thank you to our coordinator who oversaw providing that training and the team that was with her. Also, our professional development coordinator, Annie Schilling, provided an update related to the status of our current professional development opportunities, even though we know that it was something that showed up on the survey as things that we should consider reducing and scaling back. I want to also emphasize that the importance of professional development, dedicated time during the day while staff are working is important. It's essential. We really need that time to continue to work with our staff, our teachers, our custodians, our paras, to ensure that they have the skills and dispositions that they need to be successful in their job. So I want to say thank you to Annie, who worked with a lot of people to really pull this off. So she provided an update to this year's programming for professional development and also gave a preview for next year's professional development. And the last presentation was provided by our very own Simone Zunich. She provided an update related to just overall budget update that she has always been providing us during the COW meeting. So that was the 3 topics provided for the COW.
Are there any questions of the review of our committee of the whole meeting? Seeing no questions, we will then hear from our Human Resource and Business Service, and the chair of that is Member Zadowski.
Yeah, I will also try to be brief, but we had over 167 pages per normal. But we met on Monday, March 9th, here in our District Service Center.
I always mention every month, just for our community, you can find all of our meetings on YouTube. We go through all of the pages very thoroughly. At this report, I'm just going to kind of give a higher level overview, kind of hit some of the things that kind of stood out to me and our committee, which consists of Member Banks and Member Mike Sell. So I'll start by saying that we had a special guest presentation that day. Our own facilities manager, Brian Brown, was here, as well as Justin and Jacob from ICS. And they gave a presentation of about our First Street build-out project and gave an update there. The nutshell of that presentation is that we are on time and we are on budget, which is really great to hear. Some upcoming things that are going to be happening at the First Street build-out is carpet's going to be installed. That was supposed to start yesterday. Painting is going to start on April 1st. There's an elevator that's going to go in late July, roofing in August, and we're still at this point on schedule for a mid-August move-in. So that was our update about the First Street build-out. And it was really great to have a couple people from ICS and Brian Brown here to kind of answer questions. And then they also gave a presentation about our LTFM projects, so our long-term facility maintenance projects. Let's see, let me look at the project summary here for you. Lots of paper, I'm looking at my notes here. This was on Board Book, so everyone could check it out. If they checked out our HR, you'll see this. But so on some of the project summary, so for the upcoming year or three, I guess, so winter of 26, Lowell Elementary is going to have some lighting replacement as well as Lincoln Park Middle School. And then it kind of goes through our projects for 2026, 2027, for example, Denfeld High School HVAC and controls, and the Lincoln Park Middle School HVAC and controls. And then in the summer of 2028, the East High School and Ordine East Middle School HVAC and controls. So I will let everyone, I know you all looked at it and there were some nice photographs, but for the public, this is a really great update. Also gave some project updates about what's going on right now. So that was nice. I know Member Mike Sell had a question about, other projects kind of in the future, and Brian Brown was able to kind of provide that, but just for the community, we pass our LTFM plan, 10-year plan every year. So we kind of update that and pass that as a board. And that's just something that we always continually look at. So it was nice to, again, have that update. Any questions on those two pieces? I know that that's something that we're all paying attention to as a board. Member Lofeld?
I just remember, and again, I always like to support the contracts and the bids and what's really being done in either our First Street project or our long-term facilities plan. And I can remember ICS just saying that there are 50, like the carpet was supposed to start tomorrow. I hope it's ongoing. But, there's over 50, workers there, all representing different contractors. And we're always wanting our local workers, our local union support companies, if they can, if the bid comes in that way, to help us finish those projects. And ICS was right there to answer that question for you and for me when I listened to. So just want to kind of support the business or the direction that ICS has. And I love that they are committed to coming to the board every month and really giving us the background and the pictures and all of that. So thanks to Brian Brown as well.
Yeah, since you brought it up, I'll jump kind of ahead. I was going to address kind of our change orders. I'm always taking a really good look at those, especially when it comes to our First Street project. One of the questions that I asked at our HR meeting was, are we still, what percentage of a wiggle room do you leave for change orders? And I forget exactly what they said, but they always leave a little wiggle room for change orders, because with construction, you never know what you're going to run into, and that we're still well within that amount that we budgeted for, which is why we're still on track. If you look at our change orders this month, because the project is ramping up and getting to the end, we do see a lot of change orders in there, but they are all within the scope of the budget. So I just wanted to share that since you brought it up. Member Lafleur-Kemp?
Yeah, just, I really have, I was going to ask you something about the change orders, but you did already, and just, I had a chance to listen to the meeting as well, and just appreciated the questions that the committee posed to ICS, and the in-depth update that they provided for the board as well, so thank you.
Agreed. It was really good timing because as I was reading through our packet, and I started using just my iPhone calculator, adding up all the change orders, and it, but they're all within that scope, and that's pretty normal, standard procedure for a project like this. So, any other questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, I will just keep going here. So our HR report, we had a little update on our PFML, paid family medical leave applications. We've had 80 so far, and those are obviously processed through the state. So there's a employee responsibility, and then there's an employer responsibility to kind of go in there and verify that. So we're working through that, and the state, I think, is also working through that. It's obviously a new benefit, and we just appreciate the work of our HR team to kind of help with that. And then, let's see, we also have continued negotiations with our DWEA group and then our NCBAA group, and those are still kind of ongoing, so we're in the process of setting up meetings, making sure we know who we're negotiating with, that sort of thing. Our enrollment report, that looks good. We're still trending up, like Superintendent Magus previously mentioned. We're up 200 students this year. I would also just mention, we all know this, but just for the public, we're funded on what our enrollment was 2 years ago. And so that's how it is, that's how the state does it. But when we're looking at our budget and we're looking at the cuts, that's a really good problem that we have, that our enrollment is increasing, and it increased last year and it increased this year, and we're so happy about that. But we also don't get reimbursed for the students that we have, those extra students right now. So it's great to see our enrollment up, but that's just another little factor in our budget. For a child nutrition report, I wanted to highlight that. Lots of pages here. I didn't do a good job highlighting it at the HR meeting, so I just wanted to highlight it tonight. We had attached to our packet the Choice Unlimited newsletter for February, and these are one of our community partners, and they supply our dishwashers with job coaches. And there's a really nice article that was attached about the Lester Park Kitchen. And if you didn't get a chance to read it, I would encourage you all to read it, and it would encourage our community to look at it. But just a paragraph after they kind of talked about one of the employees and one of the mentors for that, or coaches for that employee. It says, quote, "That seamless fit didn't happen by accident. It's the result of a workplace culture where every team member is valued and where there's room for personality alongside productivity. For Rob, that sense of belonging matters. He takes pride in being part of the team and genuinely enjoys coming to work." So it's just a really neat article about that partnership that we have with Choice Unlimited. So I wanted to highlight that, and I'm glad I got a second opportunity. For our facilities report, right now, we're working on getting a lot of bids for projects, and there's also some job postings that we have out. We have 2 positions posted in the facilities for assistant facilities manager and the operations manager. So those are posted out. So that's our facilities report. And then for safety, I think one of the things that I would highlight is our total case injury rate. So our TCIR went up, and a part of that had to do with a lot of the ice and rain, and then freezing rain that we've been getting. There's been more slips and falls, and the district is looking to work with a new contractor to try to address some of those issues and concerns. So we'll get that turned around. And then for our technology report, right now they're looking into leveraging our E-rate funding, which is a way that a lot of school districts fund technology. So we appreciate our technology team's work on that. Thank you. And then for our transportation report, one thing that kind of stood out to me, and I think we had some good discussion about it, was our district is piloting some AI-powered dash cams on select buses, not all of them. But having been someone who's had to, in my work, look through camera footage, it can take hours. It could take a whole day sometimes if you're trying to look for certain video camera footage on an outdated system. And that's a whole nother discussion, because when we're talking about technology and the fact that we had 2 technology referendums fail, like, it's not just the Chromebooks. It's so many things that are related to safety. And now I'm just totally going off the cuff here, but one of the things when we were down at the Capitol, and we were lobbying for, is flexibility in some of our our LTFM funds, so that we can use some of that funds for technology such as that'll affect safety. Safety is a big concern for our legislators, Democrats and Republicans alike. So it was a really good opportunity to ask for more flexibility in our LTFM funds and what we can spend that on, because it is very narrow sometimes, and so that would be helpful. But anyway, what these AI-powered dash cams will do is just basically allow for us to pull up footage more instantly versus going through the cameras so much. And so we'll look for more updates in the future. It's kind of new, but I know we had a lot of questions about that. Our transportation department is also looking at a lot of different cost-saving initiatives, like new software to improve systems, and then working with colleagues in the school district for example, for field trip costs, or if there's, like my kid is on the speech team, let's say they get a coach bus, we reimburse for they get a certain, they get enough money to pay for a regular bus, but then they can fundraise for more money to get a coach, for example. So we're looking as a district just to figure out how can we make that process go more smoothly so we can get reimbursed quicker on that. So that's a transportation update. We had 2 resolutions, our donations to Duluth Public Schools and grant awards. Our financial report is on page 22, and I'll flip there, but really we're trending very similarly to last month, where we're running 7%, right, Director Zinich? Yep, 7% over, thus the cuts that we're talking about here, which we already talked about, so I won't. But I do really appreciate Director Zinich and your work in helping us forecast a lot of this. I mean, some of it is unexpected and some of it is very expected. And I think we all knew we're going to have a hard time this year. I'm also very concerned about the additional proposed special ed cuts. Because when I think about 60 cents on the dollar, where is that going to put us? You know, it's 55 cents on the dollar, or it just keeps getting snowballed. So that's our financial report. For our bids, RFPs, and quotes, we had a Lakewood Elementary boiler replacement in there. And then for our expenditure contracts on page 28, there's several there. They all look understandable. One that I would point out is that we had our expenditure contract for Teamworks come through for the capacity study, which we've talked about. No-cost contracts are always great to see, especially when you're looking at budget cuts, but there were a couple MOUs, one with Starbase. A lot of our 5th graders, I believe, go to Starbase and learn a lot about science and technology, and that's wonderful. And then there was also a MOU with UMD for Upward Bound, which is also another phenomenal program. So I thought I'd just highlight a couple of those. We had our grant applications on page 165. One that stood out to me, first of all, just really appreciate all of our staff and sometimes community members who apply for these grants. I know that that's a lot of work. I also appreciate our staff when we get the grants to kind of manage those. But just a shout out to Danette Sebo for her grant that she applied for Career and Tech Ed for East and Denfeld. And that was with the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry. And there were, I think it was for about $100,000. I'd have to, going off my memory there, but just really appreciate that because we're able to provide a lot of enriching opportunities for students because of these grant funds. So we appreciate that. And then change orders are on page 167, and I already kind of talked about those. A majority of those were on our First Street build-out project. Any questions or comments? Great, thank you.
Thank you, Member Sadowski. We'll now turn to Member Loeffler Kemp, Chair of our Policy Committee, to give the report on the Policy Committee.
Thank you. I also want to thank Member Stephanie Williams and Member Jill Lofold who served with me on this committee. So we met on Tuesday, March 10th, and again, our meeting is on YouTube to hear more of the full discussion that we had. I'm just going to do some highlights on our policies. On our agenda, we tabled policy 909 as we're gathering more information. That was going to be the only policy for first reading. And then policy for second reading is 542, intra-district transfers. And again, this was renumbering and updating to the 540 transfers within the school district policy. And I'll just highlight that the purpose of this policy, again, is to establish the process and criteria for students to request attendance at a school or program within the district other than their assigned attendance boundary school. And there was a name change, so intra-district, which is from MDE, and then the work on this policy to is really bring it to the practices that we're currently following, especially with our new enrollment center as well. So everything that's in blue is with some of the changes that were made after the second reading. And then along with that policy, there's a regulation 542R, again, intra-district transfers, and we made a few changes on that to again, to follow the policy and to make it easier for families and guardians. And so that is more informational, but I just wanted to kind of connect it to this policy for second reading. And then we had a number of policies for review. And just a reminder that review means that we've looked at these policies and there's either kind of minor changes that don't change the meaning of the policy. Often they're legislative changes or statute changes. And so we just need to look at them in one reading. And so I'm just going to quickly go through those policies and read the purpose. And they were for review. So the first one is 507.5, school resource officers. The purpose of this policy is to establish the contractual duties and training requirements of a school resource officer. And we had just passed that in August of 2024. Mainly the changes were some additional resources at the end of the policy after the legal references and cross-references, so more kind of background information. The second policy is policy 513, student promotion, retention, and program design. The purpose of this policy is to provide guidance to professional staff, parents, and students regarding student promotion, retention, and program design. Again, we last approved it in September of 2024. And you'll mainly find in the legal references and cross-references some changes, legislative changes in red there. The next policy, 519, interview of students by outside agencies. The purpose of this policy is there are occasions in which persons other than school district officials and employees find it necessary to speak with a student during the school day. School safety or student safety and disruption of the educational program is of concern to the school district. The purpose of this policy is to establish the procedures for access to students by authorized individuals during the school day. We last adopted this in March of 2025. And if you'll just go through it again, you'll see some updates. Again, Minnesota state statute changes. The next policy, 601, school district curriculum and instruction goals. The purpose of this policy is to establish broad curriculum parameters for the school district that encompass the Minnesota academic standards and federal law and are aligned with the comprehensive achievement and civic readiness. And again, there's more information to the policy, but this is just the purpose. And this mainly is an update from when this was switched to comprehensive achievement and civic readiness from what was the world's best workforce. There's some language change to reflect that. And then policy 616, school district system accountability. The purpose of this policy is to focus public education strategies on a process that promotes higher academic achievement for all students and ensures broad-based community participation in decisions regarding implementation of the Minnesota K-12 academic standards and federal law. Again, there's more to this policy, different categories, but one, I guess, piece of it that we spent some time on was the district advisory committee that was created under policy 603, and just that the policy committee is functioning, or the district advisory committee is functioning. It's meeting 4 times. It's met 2 times so far, and if anyone from the community is interested in that committee, to contact the Assistant Superintendent's office. There were some changes in the policy, just highlighting the timeline for our curriculum adoption, and then again, some minor changes related to state statute under the legal references. So you can, policy 616, and again, we last adopted it was January of 2025. Policy 621, literacy in the READ Act. The policy aligns with the Minnesota law established in the READ Act and on other topics related to reading. Duluth Public Schools places a high value on literacy as a core component of students' educational journey. The school district is committed to providing evidence-based reading instruction that is consistent with the READ Act, ensuring that students develop strong reading and writing skills. The school district emphasizes a comprehensive standards-based approach to literacy encompassing foundational skills, vocabulary development, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. This dedication to literacy aims to equip every student with the essential tools for academic success and lifelong learning in all subject areas. And again, appreciated the excellent Kyle presentation that we had on the training of our staff with the READ Act earlier this month. And the main changes, again, related to state statutes, and you'll find them, some really 1 or 2 numbering changes. And we adopted and reviewed this policy October of 2025. And then the last one, student transportation safety policy, policy 709. The purpose of this policy is to provide safe transportation for students and to educate students on safety issues and the responsibilities of school bus ridership. We actually had just reviewed and adopted this policy, readopted this policy in January of this year. There were some language changes and additions since then. Again, this policy is also highlighted in the student handbook as well. And you can go to, it needed a few words added, like paragraphs in a couple sections, so very minor, but there.
just so the public knows, we meet probably at least quarterly for our school board work sessions, and so that was really helpful. I noticed that we had a couple Head Start Policy Council members here tonight, one of whom had her daughter in the music in our schools, which was really great. Trying to think of other, I wanted to thank Member Loeffler Kemp because the Parent Advisory Council on Special Ed is this Thursday, and there's also our East School Board member may have left, but there's also an orchestra concert at East. Oh, you are there behind. There you are. So I'll be going to the orchestra concert because my son is performing in that, so I really appreciate Member Loeffler Kemp attending that for me, and I think that's all my updates. I did get a chance to, just went on behalf of the board to meet with the Climate Club at East, and I can give an update about that, but they're going to be, one of the interesting things that they're doing is they're going to be piloting a composting project. So they're having a pilot, they're collecting a lot of data, and then they're going to do collecting compost for like a month or a few weeks or something like that, and then they'll kind of report back, so.
Great. Do we have other updates? Member Loeffler Kemp?
I do have a couple. I just, so one of the committees I serve on is the Duluth Public Schools Endowment Fund, which is a separate fund, a community fund that allows schools and staff to apply for grants between $500 to $5,000. And pay attention to the April. In April, the grants will be coming in front of our board to finalize, and you'll get to learn more about them. I got a sneak preview as a voting member of that, of the grants that were approved, but a number of really creative and interesting projects, again, from schools and staff across the district. And then I just got notice that April 16th, we have our Safe Routes to Schools meeting, so I'll be participating with that as well. So if you have any thoughts on that before then, share them with me. Thank you.
I just had one committee, sorry about that, Member Mike, so go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I didn't mean to jump ahead. But the District Advisory Committee met earlier in the month and had a robust discussion. Thank you to all of our community members, parents, staff members who participate in this very important committee, and there's always room for more. Looking at our agenda, because that seemed like a really long time ago, we talked about the budget. We used Thought Exchange for the first time as a group to kind of see what that process would be like. We provided feedback to our social studies curriculum, talked about MTSS Tier 1 and core teaching, and also had a robust discussion around AI implementation and feedback.
Thank you. And then on Wednesday, March 4th, Member Sadowski and I attended the American Indian Parent Advisory Committee meeting that happened at Denfeld in the Indigenous Cohort Room. It was a very spirited meeting. We spent time, Member Sadowski and I spent time listening and discerning about concerns that APAC had surrounding finding a coordinator, which is very important for our Indigenous students, and then also some great information surrounding a trip that some of our APAC members were going to go to for, and it's escaping me right now. I forgot to write it down. Member Green Sky? Thank you. Minnesota Indian Education Association conference, right? And we sent, how many people did?
I don't have a total number. I know.
But several families of our families and our staff traveled to go. So it was a very robust meeting, and we look forward to going in April. Member Lofeld.
I'll jump in. My committee, I think, I wasn't able to attend the March 5th, but there's just a lot of other committees we attend that we're not really assigned to. So I really enjoy the Friday morning legislative updates that all of us can tune into from 9 to 9:30. It is a fast pace, but it is updates on exactly what happened that week. And if you go a little bit more regularly, you'll kind of get the tie as these bills keep running. So I encourage us to go there, but because of the schedule I keep, with not working in the mornings like that, that I can attend, and I'm willing to share notes. They have, if you've never visited the MSBA's website for legislative updates, they have really stepped up their, they call it dashboard. And you can listen to the Friday morning updates, and they also print it out, so you can print that. And that really helped as we traveled this past week to the Capitol, because I printed out the Friday chat information. The bill numbers were there, the support was there, so that was really good. I'm also going to the Safe Routes to School follow-up, as I was a part of the Western Walk around Stowe. I went to Denfeld's Daily Experience Community Gathering last month, and I'm encouraging any of us to go there tomorrow night from 5 to 7. It's held in the Commons, and it's facilitated by one of our community members. So it's really a opportunity for a lot of conversation and discussion. It's really well organized. You have project at each table, color-coded. You really do maximize the use of the time that you have there to actually really, dialogue for solutions. And then on Thursday, Member Mike Sill and I will be attending our Quality Steering Committee, where we predominantly listen and get a lot of good updates from what's going on with our teachers and programs, and it's just a good opportunity. They meet only 4 times, right? 4 times in a school year, so they're productive. They are 3 to 4 hour meetings, but also a great opportunity for my learning, and I'm glad to have Member Mike Sill join me this season. Thanks.
Member Banks?
Thank you. I patiently wait. So I need some advice or some help regarding the Park and Rec Commission. I was appointed to the commission in January. The first meeting, we were at the MSBA conference in the cities. The second meeting, they canceled and didn't notify me. So I went to the meeting and ended up at City Hall and was there in the, I think it may have been the Human Rights Commission meeting, because that's where the initial meeting was to be held. And they said, well, no, that meeting was canceled. It was canceled on Facebook. I didn't get an email through the school district email system. And then I don't know what to do. Should I contact them directly, or does someone else need to do that within the district?
I think contacting them directly, or if you would like me to do that, whatever you would find most helpful for you, Member Banks.
Yeah, I would like to attend their meetings, but if I'm not getting the information in a timely manner, or I'm not made aware of cancellations, that's a waste of my time when I go down to City Hall and there's no meeting.
I can send another follow-up. At the beginning of the year, I did send an email saying that you are the rep now. I'm looking through my emails. I feel like I haven't gotten updates that they think it's still me, but maybe they don't know who it is. So I can send another follow-up to my contact and make sure you're copied on that email as well, so you each have each other's contact info.
If I may, I did receive their initial welcome kind of thing.
Good.
But right after that, it was like the communication was not there. So I just want to get that solidified so I'm not missing meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Banks. Seeing no further community updates, we will now move on to our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Member Loeffler-Kemp, do I have a second? Member Williams has seconded it. Do we have any discussion around the consent agenda? Seeing no, Member Loeffler-Kemp, do you have discussion or? Okay. Seeing no further discussion around the consent agenda, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda has passed. Next, we will move on to resolution from committee reports. Next, we have acceptance of donations to Duluth Public Schools. Member Mike Sell.
Yes, I move Resolution B-3-26-4158, the resolution of acceptance of donations to Duluth Public Schools. Whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these various individuals and organizations. And we have many pages of donations going to East, to Head Start, to Homecroft, Lester Park, Lincoln Park, and Stowe. And then I do want to highlight of this multi-page document, 67 donations came into the Ordine East Middle School One Book, One Day event. And that is a tremendous and remarkable amount of support from that school community. And I would love to hear more about their One Book, One Day event when the opportunity presents itself.
Member Mike Sell has moved the resolution. Do we have a second?
Second.
Member Sadowski has seconded it. Do we have any discussion? I will add a little discussion, Member Mike Sell. So at Lincoln Park, they have One Book, One Read, and it was a lot of fun to listen to my son be so excited about it. I actually had to pick him up early because we left for something fun, and he got in the car and he was like, "Thanks, didn't get to finish the book, Mom." And I was like, "Well, we can do that later, right?" And he was, anywho, so it's such a great activity that we do in our middle schools. It's just to lift it up is amazing, so awesome. Do we have any other discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of acceptance of the donations, please say aye. Opposed? We have accepted our donations. Next, we have Member Loeffler-Kemp.
I move Resolution B-3264159, resolution acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools. Whereas Minnesota Statute 46503 requires a school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas the acceptance of the grant in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described grant from said organization in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these organizations. And we get many, this month we only have two, often we have many more, but the two that just wanted to highlight, Minnesota Sea Grant Center and the Center for Great Lakes Literacy, a grant of $600 to Tanya Kalenda, who is a kindergarten teacher at Stowe Elementary. They are going on bus field trip programming to the Great Lakes Aquarium, and they get a book. And then WLSSD giving, not money, but guess what? Compost. Compost to Ordine East for their school garden. And so we take anything. We take compost and anything. But I did want to just quickly mention, I happen to be, I read on often out in Tanya Kalenda's class out at Stowe, and I was there the day before their field trip, giving them a map of Lake Superior and going over fun facts of Lake Superior. And these kids, and I had a globe, and it was really fun. And these kids were so excited for their field trip. Tanya has written many grants related to the region. So just want to thank everyone for those grants. And I move again Resolution B-3264159.
Thank you, Member Loeffler-Kemp. Do we have a second?
Second.
Member Lofeld has seconded. Do we have any discussion? I always love trips to the aquarium with kids. It's amazing. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have accepted our grant awards. Next, we're moving on to special resolution and action items. We have, hold on here, Resolution E-3-26-4160. The resolution is response to the American Indian Parent Committee Resolution of Concurrence and Non-Concurrence for the year of 2025 to 2026. Whereas Minnesota Statute 124D-78 requires a school board to respond in writing within 60 days in the cases of non-concurrence to each recommendation made by the American Indian Parent Committee and state its reasons for implementing or not implementing the recommendations. Now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth School Board submits the response to the American Indian Education Resolution of Concurrence and Non-Concurrence 2025-2026 reported as attached. Do I have a second? Member Sadowski, Member Eaters has made the motion. Member Sadowski has seconded it. Do we have any discussion? Member Loeffler Camp.
I just wanted to thank board members for the discussion that we had on our retreat, and just the thoughtful discussion as we reviewed our response to the non-concurrence and just the discussions around it. So appreciate the opportunity and the space to do that as a whole board, even though we have a couple members that attend those meetings, and appreciated everyone's insights and feedback. So thank you.
Member Mike Sell.
I just want to thank the members of APAC for bringing forward such thoughtful recommendations and look forward to working together to improve education in our district.
I would like to also just lift up, because members of the APAC committee, the co-chairs, Amber Greensky and Amber Lightfeather, we had some questions for clarity around some of the responses, and they graciously took time out of their day, and it was a quick turnaround to take time to clarify some of the responses. And as I was speaking earlier, those clarifications to the response really helped us build a plan that hopefully, working with our APAC committee and with the district, is really going to make meaningful change for our American Indian students. So I just really want to lift up the co-chairs of that committee on the quick turnaround as we ask for that clarification. So you have our deep gratitude. Thank you. Member Sadowski.
Yeah, I would just second what you just said. I really appreciated APAC kind of helping clarify those things. I really appreciate when I look at this, the recommendations and then the response, like we wanted the response to be reflective of the recommendations and make sure that we can have it as detailed as possible so that we can make sure that we have a checklist of sorts, just to try to address those things. So just thank you for that.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of passing the resolution as a response to the American Indian Parent Committee Resolution of Concurrence and Non-Concurrence for 2025-2026, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The resolution carries. Next, we have, who did member?
Me.
Yes, okay. Member Lofald for the school board member attendance at AMSD Day at the Capitol.
So I make a motion to accept the resolution SP-2-26-4161. This is a resolution that states resolved the Independent School District of 709 in the St. Louis County, Minnesota, pay costs incurred as per district policy for school board members to attend AMSD, which is the Association of Metro Superintendent School Districts, at the day at the Capitol, which is coming up April 13th, 2026. So I move resolution SP-2-26-4161.
Do we have a second? Member Member Lofald has made the motion. Member Mike Sell seconded. We have just time for discussion now. Do we have any discussion? I know I've been kind of chatterson this meeting, but what I will say is this resolution for school board members to go to the Capitol is another opportunity for school board members to directly lobby members of our legislature associated with both policy and finance to try to solve the problems that we have in front of us in terms of school district finance across all the states. So this is meaningful activities, and I want to thank school board members who are going to be down doing that.
And I know my plan at this time is to attend And Superintendent Magus, will you be there?
I'm
On
looking into it
April
at this,
13th?
this,
Okay.
this point. I know I'm out that Thursday and Friday
Okay.
for a personal matter, but, so I'm weighing that. But as co-chair of the MASA committee, I try and stay involved in a lot of lobbying, and really, I think the Association of Metropolitan School Districts has a really good pulse on what are the needs of larger and mid-sized districts like ours. I didn't mention this in my superintendent's report, but I did a presentation with the superintendent from St. Cloud, Lori Putnam, and Matt Gross, the superintendent from Grand Rapids, on mid-sized school districts. And I think that there are different needs that mid-sized school districts like ours have. And one of those is that quite often we can be seen as sort of a semi-urban hub of resource for people. So we end up getting a lot of students and a lot of families that might have some additional needs that might be coming to the city like ours because they know that they can get additional services. So thinking about impacts on our financial needs, AMSD, and the mid-sized school districts as well as the large school districts, I think it's important to keep that in mind as we advocate together.
Member Loeffler Camp?
I was just going to add, I'm hoping to go too, so.
Oh, great.
Can I just, I want to just extend to that, much like the Minnesota School Board Association, and then again, the Duluth and St. Louis County Days and the prep we did for that, AMSD has a very effective website with very detailed helps with bills going through and positions that a mid-size or a metro district should be focused on. So they also provide a lot of information for board members and district employees to speak to legislators with some strong information and asks.
Thank you. Seeing no further, oh, sorry, you got to put that out there, Member
Yeah, sorry,
Sebastian.
I'm fine holding it up. Can someone please remind me of the date of that? I was just looking up in my email.
April 13th.
April 13th, okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, good. So we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of the resolution, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The resolution has passed. Moving on, do we have any questions or any other information we'd like to share at this time? Seeing none, do we have a motion for adjournment? Member Williams, do we have a second? Second. Member Lowfall, we're not going to have any discussion, so all those, all those in favor of adjournment